for those outside of the church, perhaps Paul's moment on the road to Damascus is the single event in the apostle's life that people know about. I'm talking about completely unchurched individuals. What happened on the road to Damascus?
If we asked Paul that, he would say, Jesus revealed himself to me, and or I met him, I saw him. For Paul, this wasn't what we would mean by a vision. In other words, Paul is quite clear this isn't like the subjective visions that other people have. He differentiates his seeing of Jesus from any subsequent ones. He says, last of all. So it's a resurrection appearance. It's the risen Lord appearing personally. And in order to make sense of that, I think Paul would say to us in our late modern world, you need to understand that in God's world, heaven and earth are not far apart. They are made to overlap and interlock. That's very counterintuitive for us because our culture is deeply Epicurean with a distant God and a heaven, and we're down here. But in biblical thought, heaven and earth are made for each other, and Jesus stands at the intersection. And so how did that happen? I've argued in the book, and this isn't original to me, other people have said this as well, that Paul was praying on the road to, he's a zealous Jew, off to do God's business, so of course you're praying that you will be in a state of holiness while you're doing this terrible work. And one of the ways that devout Jews prayed was to use Ezekiel chapter 1, the whirling wheels of the throne chariot, and then the chariot itself, and then your eyes go up to the figure on the chariot. And I've argued in the book that maybe Paul was doing that, and that when he got to see who was sitting on the divine throne chariot, it was Jesus himself, which is a moment of total fulfillment and total confusion and devastation. It destroys everything and fulfills everything.
Was that, in the language of theologians, the moment he was converted?
I wouldn't put it like that. If I say someone was converted today, the normal assumption would be this person has been an atheist or an agnostic or whatever and has come to faith, had a spiritual experience. Paul was a deeply spiritual man, deeply prayerful man who worshipped the God of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob as the creator God, the God of Israel. Paul never stopped worshipping the creator God, the God of Israel, throughout his life. What happened was that he came to realize that this God he'd always worshipped had acted in and as Jesus, and then he quickly came to realize was active in and through his spirit. So we have to be very careful in case we give the impression that Paul leaves something called Judaism and embraces something called Christianity. The isms and the ities are a 19th century invention. That's part of our problem.
But the reality is that the apostle stops enforcing Jewish obedience to the law, something he'd done with violence.
Yep. But he says,
after that experience.
Yeah, this is where we need to subpoena the whole of Galatians chapter 3, because that's where he hammers that one out, where he makes the very strong argument that God made promises to Abraham about how he was going to save the whole human race, in principle, save people of all sorts, if you like, and that the law, the Mosaic law, was given as a good but temporary dispensation. And that's a complicated bit of theology, but it's necessary to say the law was good, but its purpose is now fulfilled, and Moses is kind of pointing on. In Romans 8 he says what the law couldn't do, God has now done. That's the key.